In my younger years, along came a guy named David Redwine from Scott County, Virginia, who married my sister-in-law, Jody. David is a native of Scott County. To give some recognition, he played football for the great Harry Fry from over there in Gate City. Many of y'all remember him. David attended Virginia Tech and acquired degrees leading to his Doctor of Veterinary Medicine, having graduated in 1988. David practices in Scott County at the Valley View Animal Clinic, but he's a dynamic and diverse guy. He's, in addition to delivering medicine to small animals and large animals like cows. I don't know if he's worked on that one or not, but he's a diverse guy. He served on the Virginia Tobacco Commission, the Scott County Board of Supervisors, even serving as chairman. He's an adjunct professor at Lincoln Memorial University down in that way. He farms and ranches Black Angus and hair sheep over there in Scott County. If you remember a few years ago, hair sheep began an agricultural effort over there in Scott County in this region and supplied at one time, over a period of time, over $2 million worth of sheep to Food City. In addition to that, he, having married Jody, he does have two children that are grown now, has grandchildren. Both his daughter and son are teaching in the Kingsport City School System. And some of you may remember Landon, who quarterbacked the Dobbins Bennett Indians for 3 or 4 years there a couple years ago. In addition to all that, he's a barnyard comedian. And maybe he'll share some of those jokes with us. But anyway, please welcome Dr. David Redwine to tell us about great things in agriculture.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. Good afternoon. I guess this thing's on. You can hear me. I appreciate the opportunity to be here at Kiwanis. I really appreciate these service clubs. I was a Rotarian for many, many years, and these cities and communities could not do what they do without the help of these clubs. And for you folks who are busy with jobs and also retired, a lot of you, to come back and be a part and actually give your time and effort for no pay at all, just so your community can be a better place. I think that's wonderful, and I commend you for it. And I guess that's a brag. I don't know if I need to pay $10 for that or not. Anyway, thank you. Chief Addington and I go way back. I still blame him because he married his wife 9 years before I did, and he didn't warn me in time. But we've had great relationships. There's 3 of those girls, and we've all kind of been together and had good health and traveled around the world and had some good times. And I really appreciate him and his career here with Kingsport, and I appreciate the invitation over here. I'm blessed to work in a career where we can earn a living and have a good time and enjoy every day. And everybody talks about being a veterinarian and thinks that's a wonderful job, and it's got its bad parts too, I guess, but we do really enjoy it. And the good thing about my career is that you don't have to make up stories that are funny. You just tell them like they actually happened, and they're really funny, But I tell this story every now and then about this old guy that came in my office, and he was an old farmer type. He's probably maybe 75 years old, and he had this cat with him. And the cat was 17 years old and had an eye missing, and the other one didn't look too good, and one ear torn off, and abscesses and bite wounds all over it. And so I'm looking it over, and it was going to be kind of an uphill battle. And I said, I don't know. We can treat some of these problems if you want to, but it's not going to be real good. And he said, well, You know, I was just thinking, do we want to treat her, or do we just maybe just put it to sleep? And I said, well, we can do either one, you know. We can handle either one. It's strictly your decision. I said, are you attached to it? And he said, well, no, I'm not attached to it. I mean, it's just a cat. And I said, well, what about your wife? And he said, well, I mean, I think more of her than I do the cat, but I'm not attached to either one of them. And I said, well, we don't do people, so you're lucky in that respect. But anyway, I live in the school that I think you ought to learn something every day. So I'm here today to tell you a few things, and Chief Addington kind of gave me 2 or 3 or 4 different topics and wanted me to hit a little bit on everything. So we'll try to do that today, and I'll run through this, and we'll have a little time maybe for questions and answers afterwards. But what I want to do is have you think about maybe veterinary medicine and also agriculture from a different perspective, and hopefully you'll learn something. So we'll move into it today and see which direction this thing goes. So we're going to start out talking about things you may not know about veterinary medicine and agriculture, or how to be the smartest person at the next family cookout when you're talking. So you ought to really be well-heeled when you get ready to do that. So let's talk about changes with the family pet since the 1970s. Okay, I was born in 62, grew up in the late 60s and 70s, went to veterinary school and got out in the 80s. And the family pet was a totally different entity than it is today. And these changes have happened so subtly that a lot of people don't even realize it. It's happened right around you over time, but people don't even realize. So in the 70s, this was the family dog. Okay, so the family dog was chained to the smokehouse, and if he had hair loss, it was automatically mange, and most people put burnt motor oil on them, and that really was to keep them from licking it because they couldn't stand the taste of the motor oil, but it didn't do anything for the mange. But they, there was maybe 2 kinds of dog food. You either fed, I don't know, old Roy probably wasn't even invented then, but you had, Purina and Field and Stream or something, but that's about all you had. But this dog was outside, and he was, I guess, kind of a second-class citizen. At some point, somebody let the dog come to the porch. And then one night when Dad was at work, they let him come inside.
Or when the weather was bad.
Or when the weather was bad. He got to stay in on the rug. And then one night, they forgot to put him back, and he stayed inside all night. And so now he's in the bed. Okay? So what you don't know about this is that when the dog moved from the chain to the bed, that changed the value of that dog to the family. He was no longer a pet. He watched TV with you. He ate meals with you. He slept with you. He's now a family member. And that change in value has changed the way the people look at the pet, and especially the amount of money they're willing to invest in the pet. And that happened, like I say, kind of slowly, but now everybody's got them in the house, okay? So increase the value, the single most important factor in the billion-dollar pet industry. We're going to talk briefly about some trends. Veterinary medicine. Specialization. That's a biggie. Human medicine started this maybe 20 or 25 years ago. Now veterinary medicine has moved into it. If your dog comes to me with a bad eye, we may see it once or twice, and if we're getting it better, that's great. If we're not getting it better, we're going to refer that to an ophthalmologist. You've got veterinary ophthalmologists. You've got orthopedists. You know, there's more dog ACLs fixed in the Tri-Cities than there are people ACLs. Okay? All sorts of specialization. Orthopedics, ophthalmology, oncology. People are spending $3,000 and $4,000 and $5,000 on cancer patients, knowing they can't save them, but to buy them 60 or 90 days. Happens all the time. There's an oncology practice in Knoxville that does nothing but cancer in pets. Allergies, many other areas of specialization. Cruciate ligaments, all these dogs jumping off the couch and hang a toenail and pull a leg back and pop an ACL. And then, you know, when I was young, he was just that dog that carried that leg. Now he's the dog with the $2,000 knee. And that's just the way the practice has come. And it's, you know, I take up for Dr. Straley and myself, veterinarians didn't do this. Okay? Owners did this. Owners did it because that's what's happening in human medicine. They love this pet, and if you don't refer them, they'll go to somebody who will refer them because they want it fixed. That's just the way the practice is. All right, treating them like family. I love this. What's happened since they moved in the house? Okay, they all got fat, right? They lay on the couch, they sleep in the bed, you carry them their food, and they no longer run the hills like they did in the 70s. Now, we don't have as many hit by cars, but we've got a lot of fat dogs, okay? All right, aggression. Let me tell you a little bit about the family pet. A dog in the house looks at the family unit as a pack. They look at everything as a pack. And somebody's going to be the leader, and somebody's going to be next, and somebody's going to be next. And the subordinate members take orders from the ones above them, okay? Well, when your dog's sleeping in the bed and eating when you do and laying in your chair, he is now equal with you. So when he is equal, he now has to jockey for who's the boss. We see 3 times more aggressive pets now than we did when they were outside. Okay? The good news is, if your dog attacks you, I would advise you to run because he's probably so fat he can't keep up very long. All right. All right. But cremations. Local funeral home came to see us and said, we're going to start offering pet cremations. And I swear to you, I said, we will take your information and I will recommend it, but we will never do any of these. We're now doing 20 a month. $225, $250. We're the middleman. People pay us, we pay the funeral home. Funeral home comes to my office, picks them up, takes them, has them cremated in a crematory separate from humans, brings them back in a decorative box with a paw print and a nose print, and they print 2 or 3 other parts of their body, I guess. But we are doing a ton of these. But people live in a subdivision with a lot, and they want to keep their pet. They don't bury them in the yard. Used to, that, you know, in the 80s, the veterinary clinic would offer to dispose. And quite honestly, you had a guy come pick them up and took them to the landfill. That's no more. Nobody wants the dog in the landfill. So we're doing a ton of those. Just kind of some interesting things that have happened through the years. Global pet food market, 2024-25. Pet food is a $100 billion industry globally. Okay, there's a diet for everything. Diabetic diets, weight loss diets, weight gain diets, liver diets, kidney diets. Anything you can think of, we've got a food for it. And and they're only $80 a bag, and these people just eat it up. And, you know, they do help. It is good medicine. But I'm from the old school, and I still can't believe the extent that owners go to make sure their pets have quality health care. But it happens all the time. You stock market guys, anything pet related is recession free. You know, it ain't going to go bad. It's only going to get bigger. Your food's projected to go to 135 billion by 2030 in 5 years. So it's going to go up 30%. Their global pandemic hit our area, hit the world, shut the whole world down. We never missed a day's work, and our revenue went up 40%. People went home and worked from home, and they played with their kids for 2 days, and they said, I can't live with that kid anymore, get him a dog. So they bought him a dog, and then they bring him to us, and now the pandemic boosted veterinary medicine tremendously. Okay, this is the last thing I want to talk about briefly with small animal. You see VCA? That's Veterinary Centers of America. That's only one of about 6 or 8 different corporations that are buying up veterinary clinics. Okay? Veterinarians love to do veterinary medicine. They hate to do business. They don't want to do payroll. They don't want to do inventory. They don't want to do insurance. They just want to practice medicine. These corporations know that, so they're now buying these businesses up like they're doing other businesses and managing 10, 12, 15 veterinary clinics from one central management hub. And so all you have to do if you work there is go in and do medicine. And they take care of everything else. But it's happening right here in Kingsport. Okay, it's honestly, I've got voicemails. They call me every week wanting to buy. These companies are out there grabbing every clinic they can. It happened in the funeral home business. My accountant the other day sent me a letter, and he's in Colonial Heights, and he got bought out by a guy in Las Vegas who was buying up accounting offices. So it's happening in every business. All right, so we're going to talk a little bit about sheep and goats. I'm also in the sheep business. These are sheep or goats? Those are sheep, right? Sometimes it's hard to tell between sheep and goats. You want to learn something? How's the best way how do you tell a sheep from a goat? All right? Right? Sheep say bah. Goats say meh. And if you listen to them, they actually do. The other thing is their tail. Goats can hold their tail straight up vertically and walk around, and sheep cannot, and their tails hang down. So if you ever see one, you don't know what it is, that's how you know a sheep from a goat, okay? Don't feel sorry for sheep and goat people. You drive down the road and there's a house that don't look too nice and there's 100 goats out front. Those people are probably making more money than we are, okay? Sheep and goats are a very lucrative business. We'll talk about why, okay? So we go back to the 70s, all right? The 70s, the main consumer of lamb, which is a sheep under a year old, that's the high quality meat, okay? The main consumer was a white tablecloth restaurant, country clubs, nice restaurants, okay? Mainly white Anglo-Saxon Protestants, okay? That's who ate it. So they would eat any kind of lamb. New Zealand had more sheep than they got people, okay? So they would kill lamb. They raised it cheap. They harvested it. They boxed it. They froze it, and they sent it over here cheap. And restaurants could buy it very, very cheap. And American lamb never was worth much of anything because we couldn't compete. We couldn't compete with those cheap prices. So everybody kind of suffered, all right? Then the wool market disappears. It costs more to shear a sheep than the wool is worth because of synthetic materials. That's done away with wool, okay? And if they get any wool, they import it from New Zealand, I guess. But, so the wool market disappears. So now you get the invention of hair sheep, which are sheep that have brought in some Caribbean influence, and they have hair coats, and they shed every spring like a dog. And the hair, everybody says, so what do you do with the hair? You don't do anything with it. Birds make nests with it, I guess. But they're a meat sheep. They're made for meat. The wool industry's gone. The coat industry's gone. We're all into hair breeds now. Okay? This is a good example. This is a Katahdin ram. Okay? A Katahdin is one of the breeds of hair sheep that's really popular here. You guys that know me don't answer this, but where have you heard Katahdin? Mount Katahdin. That is your geography lesson for today. Mount Katahdin in Maine. Okay? This breed of sheep was developed at the foot of Mount Katahdin in Maine, and that is the northernmost end point of the Appalachian Trail. So, when you hike the trail, you'll be there. Okay? That's a Katahdin. You can see the hair coat. All that sheds off. No wool on them. Just a really good, easy to raise meat sheep. All right, largest consumers of lamb and goat in the United States are now Middle Easterners, Greeks, and Hispanics. Okay, so along about the late 80s, early 90s, we had a huge influx of Middle Eastern people. A lot of them are from Washington, D.C., New Jersey, New York, Boston, up the eastern seaboard. Okay, these guys don't eat much beef, and they eat a lot of lamb and goat. Okay, so what about New Zealand? Okay, well, the interesting thing about the Middle Easterners is that their lamb and goat has to be killed under their religious customs, which is halal customs. If you hear that word, that's the religious custom of which their meat is harvested. It has to be done very humanely, very quietly. They pray over it, and then they sacrifice it. And that's the way it has to be done, or they don't eat it. Okay? So what did that do to the market? That shut New Zealand out. Okay? You couldn't ship frozen lamb over here because they're not going to buy it. The only lamb all these Middle Easterners that are now in the United States are going to eat is fresh lamb raised here in the United States. So, that drove our lamb market out the top. And that happened before 2000, and it's still that way. Okay, halal slaughtered. If it's not guaranteed and verified, they're not going to take it. And $3 a pound. Mark said we sold several $1 million to Food City. One interesting thing, your little value card, your Food City value card. Everybody thinks that's to save money. Okay, that's really not to save money. That's to track you. Okay, they're tracking you on what you buy, how much of it you buy, and how often you buy it, and how much of each item they sell in each area. The interesting thing that we learned from the Food City project was, after a year or two, they said we sell 5-10 times the amount of lamb in areas that have either a university or a hospital. Why is that? You've got a lot of doctors, a lot of staff that are Middle Eastern descent, and they've got money. So they're buying lamb because they have to, and they can get fresh lamb. All right, so now we're going to switch gears. We'll go to the steak, to the beef cattle thing. I'll talk about it just a little bit, okay? And I'll get you done in time to have some questions, hopefully. So, I'm also a beef cattle guy. And when you go to Chop House and you eat and you're on your way home and you're with your family or your friends, and you say, that was a really good steak. What made that a really good steak? What do you consider a really good steak and why? And when you're walking through the meat counter and you're trying to decide what you're going to take home, what's a really good steak? Or do you even know what you're actually looking for? Okay? So, we're going to talk about that today and how much work goes into what's behind a really good steak. Okay, and I want to stand up for some farmers because farmers get a lot of bad press that they are the guys that couldn't pass math and couldn't do anything else, so they're farmers. And that's not true. These are the smartest people in the country, okay? And it's extremely scientific. So good steaks are like good men. Most of them got a little fat on them. You see, you've got the fat around the outside, and then you've got this fat laying in here. What do you call that? Marbling, right? Marbling, okay? That's intramuscular fat. It's where your flavor comes from, okay? And that's the way beef is graded, okay? There was a breed of cattle years ago that was called limousine cattle, and their big push was they were really lean. That's when the cholesterol thing was going on. And their motto was lean on beef because they were all lean, had no fat. They're now almost extinct because nobody wanted lean, tough meat. They wanted this, okay? Flavor, tenderness, okay? So let's look at beef production. You're used to looking at it from the consumer standpoint. Let's look at it from the producer's perspective, okay? Quality equals profit. There's a lot of money in cattle. These people are doing it for a living, okay? I tell people I'm not talking about the guy that's got 2 cows out front that wants to look like Rip Wheeler on Yellowstone. We're talking about people that do this for a living. Okay? The 2% of the population who works 80 hours a week to feed the other 98%. Okay? While you're at Hilton Head, they're baling hay and building fence so they can feed you. And I like to draw attention to that. Okay? I took this off of a sale report the other day. This was one ranch out in the Dakotas that just pulled up one set of calves that was ready to sell. This is not all their calves, okay? But then this one cut of calves they sold, 114 head, average 460 pounds per calf. They brought $4 a pound. Okay, that's $1,839 a piece, or $209,000 for one set of calves that went through. And this probably sold in less than a minute. So you can imagine how nervous these farmers are when you drive $200,000 worth of calves into an auction ring. Quality counts. These calves don't look hardly as good as they should. It might cost him $30,000, $40,000. So they want to grow the best. It's like widgets. If you're selling widgets, your widget needs to be better than anybody else's widget. And the better your widget, the more it's worth. Okay? The other thing about farmers is they have no control over the price of their materials, their feed, their supplies, their equipment. They have to pay what the market demands because they've got to have it. The other thing is they have no control over the sale price. They've got a perishable product. Whether they sell strawberries, peaches, or cattle, when they're ready to sell, they got to move. And you've got to take what the market will bear. The only control you have over your income is quality. And all you can do is raise the very best you can and try to get the top market price for that period of time. Grades of beef: prime, choice, select, utility. Prime Grade A prime beef has a lot of marbling, tenderness, good color. Then they come on down the line. Choice has less, select, and utility. You don't want to buy anything at select and utility. That's going to your $80 bag dog food. Grade, price, and overall customer satisfaction is determined by marbling alone. Intramuscular fat deposits. Also, size of the carcass, amount of muscle in it, and then you've got to figure how efficiently you produce that. How long did it take to get it to that weight, okay? So how are we producing prime beef? There's a lot of stuff goes on behind the scenes, and you go buy it, take it home and grill it, and you don't even know this, but you will know it next time, okay? For many years, beef people have been submitting data into the beef associations and registries to help identify superior individuals with performance and carcass traits in the top 1%. So they're weighing these calves when they're born, they're weighing them when they're weaned, they're weighing them when they're yearlings, they get weighed out of the feedlot, they figure average daily gain, how much they gained per day for that period of time, what they weighed when they were born, and how fast they grew. So there's all sorts of traits that they track. You want them born small. Why do you want them born small? Well, you want them born, the lighter the birth weight, the less calving trouble you have. Okay, you can sleep all night. All right? You get them up in the 90, 100-pound range, you're going to have calving trouble, and you're going to have to help deliver, and you're going to lose more of them. If you can keep those birth weights down around 70, 75 pounds, then they'll just spit those calves out and they get up and go, and you don't have to worry about them, and your survival rate's 99%. But then you've got to get them to the highest weaning weight and yearling weight. So you want them to start the smallest and end the biggest. Okay? And then you analyze that data and you find those superior animals that do that the best, and those are the best of the best. And that's the ones we use to breed. Okay? What have I got marked there? Ribeye. Okay? Flat part of the back over the ribs. Okay? They're now ultrasounding these ribeyes. We take cattle in the feedlot, we're ultrasounding the ribeyes, and we're finding the area, the flat square area of that ribeye muscle, and selecting for those animals with the largest ribeyes, because there's getting to be fewer and fewer farmers and more people. So in order for the farmers to feed the population, we got to do a better job and produce more on the same amount of land. Okay? Larger ribeyes. Ultrasound these things, and each animal has data. Okay? So here's a really interesting thing nobody knows about much unless you're in the business. We've now identified DNA markers for each of these traits. Okay? They have studied so many and looked at DNA that they now have DNA markers for birth weight, DNA markers for growth, DNA markers for their daughter's milk production. There's 25 or 30 different traits we now have DNA markers for. And I can have a calf born at my farm, and he can be a week old, and I can draw blood on that calf and send it in, and in 2 or 3 weeks, they'll send me a readout that will accurately tell me what his progeny will do. Okay? That's how scientific this stuff has become. They're not just cows out in the field and you just sell them, take what they're worth. These people are doing it for money, and they're trying to be the best of the best, and beef has come a long way. All right, we got performance tested bull tests. Okay, so we take those best of the best cattle we have, and we send them to these universities. Okay, and all the universities in most of the Southeast and all over the Midwest have bull tests. Okay, they take those animals in, they keep them 120 days, they feed them all exactly the same, treat them the same, and they weigh them about 4 or 5 times, and they determine which ones grow the fastest. Okay, then they rank them according to how they perform, and they have a sale. And those really high performing ones bring a lot of money, and then down the line. But these cattle right here in Sullivan County around you, the bulls they are using come from these performance tested bull tests. Okay, that's how they're getting better. This is an ad from University of Tennessee. Even the Vols got involved after about 15 or 20 years of everybody else doing it. But they have a performance tested bull test, and people are buying those things and bringing them home and improving their own herds. Okay? The extreme best of the best. Okay? The very, 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 very top producing, high performing animals with a combination of growth, numbers, what we call phenotype, which is they look good. The very best of the best end up in bull studs. Okay? So these bull studs, those catalogs we handed out, you flip through them, and they take these bulls in and they collect their genetics or semen, and then they advertise them in magazines, and all these people doing artificial insemination order these semen from these top bulls, and that's how they're getting better. Okay? I had a bull a few years ago, and I was joking with my wife, and I said, I'm going to buy that bull tomorrow. He's really nice. And he was their top bull, I guess, they were going to sell. And so the next day, I said, I got good news and bad news. I said, the bad news is I didn't get my bull. He brought $81,000. The good news is I can use him next year for $40 because he went to a bull stud, and then I can order semen on him and use it in my own herd for $40 a straw. So I can still have the same genetics without paying the price. Okay, so that's done. We're going to have a minute. Mark wanted me to mention that some of these high-priced bulls bring a lot of money. I mean, they bring $150,000, $200,000, $250,000 up. Okay, but it's not a game. It's real money because they turn around and sell that semen and they recoup that money, and they still make money. If he's a really top animal, he's going to recoup that back and then pay you dividend. So my wife and I bought into one of these bulls. We still own him out west. Part of him. We got into a bull, and he's actually a $250,000 bull. We didn't get nearly that much. You know, we're like in partners with 15 or 20 other people. Okay? But I tell people, I said, I think I got the mouth and the feet, but I didn't get none of the semen because I'm getting the bill for the feed. But it has been a good investment. So people do invest in it. They get buyer groups, okay? Buyer groups together to buy these bulls and then turn around and sell the genetics on them. And that's the way, it's just another man's stock market, okay? All right, that's an example of a bull at a bull stud, okay? So here's a bull. They don't have all of his numbers, but that's his name. This is his sire, which is a big-time sire from down in Nashville, Deer Valley. Birth weight plus 1 pound, weaning weight plus 65 pounds. And this is judged against the average for the breed. So if you use this bull, you can expect his calves to wean off 65 pounds heavier than the average for the breed. Okay? $4 a pound, and you got 114 of them, it turns into money. Okay? But this is going on all around you, right here, and people have no idea. Okay?
How long will he live?
These bulls are pushed pretty hard. out in real life, I mean, bulls live to be 8, 9, 10 years old. Most people use them for 5 or 6 years and sell them because there's a new kid in town, they want a new bull. But they can live 8, 9, 10 years. But the semen production on these bulls can be 6 or 7 or 8 years. And the good thing about it is they can collect these bulls twice a week, and they'll get 200 straws out of one collection. So they can bank up, 10,000 straws on a bull. And if he dies, that doesn't matter. They've still got the genetics, and they still sell it. Okay? Embryo transfer. The same thing is done with females in that they determine which are the elite females and the very, very best of the breed. Now we're doing some stuff, and they have been doing for a little while, called embryo transfer, where a cow comes in heat to be bred, and she only ovulates one egg because she's going to have one calf. Okay, we can now super ovulate those cows, give them shots. Instead of ovulating one egg, she'll ovulate 20 eggs. Okay, so then we breed her AI to this guy. She's the best cow. We breed her to this guy, and then we wait 7 days, and we go in their uterus and flush those eggs out. And then we grade them, separate them, and freeze them. And then we can put those embryos in 20 different cows. And 9 months later, those 20 cows will all have a calf from this bull and this cow. And the mother is strictly a surrogate. Okay? So that's how we are maximizing the production. Instead of that cow living to be 14 and having 12 calves, she's going to live to be 14 and be the mother of 400 calves. Okay? That's why she sells for $80,000 or $100,000. Okay, so that's a little bit about veterinary medicine, sheep, goats, cattle, and you've got 5 or so minutes.